What up, everybody? Scuffy here, and today we're going to be doing ourselves a little deck list action. We're going to be talking about Hibou Khan, the Sagyar Mayzan, as it were. Hibou Khan is the fourth warlord that was added to the game here. He comes with that Sagyar Mayzan card, a solid ability, deal 2 damage to an enemy, and if it survives, deal 1 damage to your warlord. That can go to any enemy, your opponent's warlord, a troop that you want to kill, whatever the case may be. He has high initiative, as all the White Scars warlords do, with the exception of Sagyar Khan, who has very high. I don't have Sagyar Khan. But I found that Hibou Khan is actually a very good warlord choice. He plays differently than Kinza, differently than Targetai. You'll notice here that for some reason his Sagyar Mayzan card is not showing up in the collection. We'll see what that actually looks like in the game. I have done deck lists for Kinza and Targetai previously, like right when the White Scars hit and they were hot to trot. I was focusing on specifically the one-turn kill, the warp retreat build with them. I'll lay claim to that because that was day one in my head for how to operate with them. It's evolved over time, and recently, obviously, warp retreat has received a little bit of a nerf. But Kinza and Targetai, in their own regards, with or without warp retreat, play very well, but they play very differently. You've got Targetai, who does damage, drawing a lot of cards, preferably tactic cards, and then you've got Kinza, who is bouncing. He does a lot of bouncing or a lot of keeping key troops for a late game flush, a late game burst from hand, very low cost guys that you've lowered the cost of and finish up the game. Sagyar Khan is kind of supposedly locked into one style, but I don't have him to really test that theory because I feel like there's potential to play him with troops more so than he sees play already. But Hibou Khan is a beast altogether differently, and he's one that I really enjoy because unlike the other 3 warlords, he's very mid-range. I found that his play style, he can be aggressive when he needs to be aggressive. He can respond well to threats that he needs to respond with, and then he can sit back and bide some time if he wants to choose to do so. He's on a path for redemption, as it were, for the Sagyar Mayzan. So I've got some Hibou Khan games. I've got way more than I'm probably going to show here, but they all offer a variety of examples as far as how his games can go. We'll play this one here against Tacitus Proctor. This game may be a quick game. This game might not be a quick game. I think having the damage cards in hand and the fast troops, that's a big plus. But really what he has got going from him beyond his ability is this Sagyar Mayzan. You give a friendly troop +2/+0, and backlash, you put that card back into your hand. Now that's really important because what that does is that makes your opponent have to respond to any troops that you have on the board. You've already got fast troops. You've already got fast troops that can flank. You've already got flankers, fast troops. You've got rally effect abilities that they aren't going to want to return to your hand. But the fact that if they don't kill even lowly Ambassador Melgator, on my next turn I can make him a 3 attack. That could be enough to take out a troop on the board. That could be enough to do damage to the warlord, especially if it's a troop that has got 3 to 5 health, so they're going to stick around even longer. And it's going to be a constant thorn in their side. That is what the Sagyar Mayzan were intended to do as part of their punishment, part of their redemption, was to be that thorn in the side of Horus, but at the same time complete outcast to the White Scars. Hibou Khan does this pretty well. He has that ability to be flexible. He can deal damage to a warlord. He can deal damage to a troop. He has access to White Scar cards, which in of themselves all have a very strong synergy. But with his off and on aggressive approach, either through Sagyar Mayzan or through the troops themselves, he can respond well to any threat. And that's really what a mid-range deck is. A mid-range deck can respond to threats. I can get rid of a card in your hand and deal damage, or I can keep up this advantage by making you deal with the cards that I'm throwing down. Perhaps I'm going to put down a little frontline here, bolster some health. Now you've got 2 of my troops out here that you have to respond to, rather than play abilities or put down more troops. Or in this instance here, returning, you know that I've got another Ambassador Mogator, so you really don't want to play a troop that I can return to your hand, so you're going to have to find a way to deal around that. All the while, I am strengthening the cards in my hand, getting to that moment where I can unleash either tactics, multiple tactics on and off again, or I can drop several fast troops and really just drive home that final victory. As you've seen here, I put the Sagyar Mayzan on the Rhino. Now it's a 4 attack, making it very hard for this Philisian to capitalize on breaking through the Rhino. Plus, it'll give me the backlash ability, so I'll get that back in my hand, and that can go right back on another troop. In addition to that, you've got all the wonderful good stuff that the White Scars give you. So although, Tactus Proctor's whole point is to build up a board, kind of, dominate with these vehicles, I'm playing the same cards here. I haven't done a whole lot from my hand, but I've shut down what he has to do. And this isn't a control style. This is just me responding to his threats, all the while bolstering my own force. And I really can't say enough of it. I think he plays really fun. Yes, with his ability, you take 1 damage, but you're dealing 2 and you're taking 1. It's an even exchange. It's in the same way that if you were a 3 attack warlord who phase strikes your opponent's warlord, you're going to deal more damage than you're taking, and that's still a win. So here's another example here of just fast troops. Yes, I'm not going to do much with it. It's gonna flank, and I'm gonna go right into the warlord here, driving that health down. I'm gonna have to eat whatever damage that this massive vehicle can deal out, but I'm hitting hard now. I've locked in the lethal at this point. I've got enough tactics in my hand, as well as damage from my warlord ability to just solidify the end game scenario. Even with these healings here, it's not going to be enough. If anything, he's just delayed the inevitable. The single golden cache is a strong play here. And I don't even need to go that route. I could just precog it up, or I can go fast and double fast and tap hard. I could play Hibou Khan to deal the damage. I could put Sagyar Mayzan on this Silverblade Speeder. The options I have late game as a mid-range deck are very flexible. They're very versatile. The White Scars in general are very versatile with all these cards kind of synergizing, but Hibou Khan makes use of them in a different way than Kinza would, or than Targetai would. And I really enjoy that. This is just one game example here where you just keep up that consistent threat, deal with what they have on the board, frustrate them, get in a position of strength. Let's take a look at this deck list here, and then we'll do a couple more games. So this deck list here is fairly balanced. I mean, I've got 12 tactics. I've got 18 troops. So I've got more troops than tactics, which is fine. And the tactics that I have are fairly, I want to say standard, but they're fairly useful for what they do, because I have so many 6-cost cards in my deck, 6 and up, right? I've got a total of 7 cards in my deck, which is almost a quarter of my deck is over the cost of 5. So Abandoned Supplies is useful there. It's also useful if you're drawing a cheaper card, because that 3 energy Sagyar Mayzan, you want to be able to combo with it very well. If I get a golden cache, get 5 energy, that means at 8 energy, I can make this thing an 8 with the flank, as opposed to not an 8, a 10 with the flank. It's a little bit of an extreme example, but that's way better than playing it at 7 energy at 7. So So you've got the abandoned supplies. Then you've got the quick reaction, because you do want to keep him alive for those end games. This is just a strong White Scars card altogether. You've got your basic tactics that deal damage, as well as the Thunderhawk here and Swift Strike. Those are very important to deal damage and draw cards. And then you've got your traditional, fast speeders, right? You've got the Kaisar speeders, and you've got the Tanghai attack bikes. Now, to go with that, I've added some additional things here. Some of them are rare, some of them are epics. The legendaries themselves, we'll get to that in a second. I can tell you which ones are more required, but Outriders works as a one-of because he's really playing higher cost cards that have the potential to do more damage because of Sagyar Mayzan. Outriders isn't entirely necessary. I've got one in there in the event that late game I decide to throw down a couple cheap, fast troops with an Outriders to do more damage. But theoretically, I could change that into one of the White Scars tactics or just a different tactic altogether. I've also got the Captain Hakim. He's a legendary. Not super necessary for this deck, but I threw him in there. And the value that he can offer me early on, turn 2, I might even just get a copy of opponent's counterattack, but I'm going to get something, and that's useful. He draws fire away from my warlord, which is always a sound strategy. I don't dislike having him in the deck. He's not required. You could put anything else in there. I don't think you'll regret it. Also, I've got these Storm Seer guys. These Uligi Chogarian Storm Seers. They're a little bit costly, but for their value, right off the bat, they give you the exchange where you attack. You're not taking any damage. Essentially, you're taking 2 and you're healing 2, but you're dealing 2. So you still come up for the trade. And if you have White Tiger Dao, then you're dealing 4 and you're healing 2. And that puts you at the advantage. And now your opponent has got to get rid of these guys before attacking your warlord. Late game, if you can drop 2 of these side by side, you attack for 2, you heal 4, you healed more than you took, and it goes from there. Very strong cards, especially in the aggressive setup. And then, as you saw, I've also got the Golden Star Rhino. I find the Rhino as a frontline unit, especially with this deck, and the recent change to increase the healing that it does, is very useful. Returning a friendly troop to your hand is extra nice, especially if it is a troop like Ambassador Melgator, or it's a fast troop that has got like 1 health left and I want to get a second use out of it. I certainly can do it that way. And then I've got the Stormlance in there just for as a one-of hard removal. And I found that Uhan Solban is a linchpin. At late game, sometimes this can just deny your opponent the chance to do anything. You have a nice beefy front line that drops the attack of everything. And then you have got a turn to just finish off, like kind of take your final strike. It's a very strong card. Then you've got, just last but not least, I said Golden Keshe. Again, I think only one of in this deck is necessary. It's very cut and dry. There are some troops that it doesn't need to use. There's not a whole lot of bouncing to go that route, but it works very well. It's flexible. It can deal damage when it needs to deal damage to the warlord. It can deal damage to troops when it needs to deal damage to troops. Let's take a look at a more aggressive game. This one here is against Alfarius. This one, right out the gate, you'll see how fast this game needed to be. It needed to be fast. And White Scars are very good at going fast when they need to. First off, What a Joke is a cool player. He's on Discord. He's still playing around, so that's fun. We saw this game, how this was going to be going. I think right about turn 2 or 3, you knew where this is going here. So you'll see he's going to Alfarius, which means he's not doing traps, which is good, because that would be really bad for him, because a lot of my stuff, even though it's higher cost, does damage, deals damage. But he draws the White Tiger Dao. I have the White Tiger Dao. So he knows that this game is going to be a gnarly beat 'em up really quickly, and I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to go all in as quickly as I can, playing cards from my hand to avoid any potential stun shenanigans, and at the same time dealing damage. And kind of curious because he's just drawing cards at this point. So I'm thinking, is he going for the stun route? Is he going to go for a harrowing? Can I beat him before the harrowing happens? I think with White Tiger Dao, I can. And again, hitting him with these troops. He's got to get rid of the Silver Blade Speeder somehow, because he knows that I can throw a Sagyar Mayzan on it and make it a 5 attack troop if I so want to. What he's doing instead, though, is he's going to throw out that White Tiger Dao first. He's going to use his counterattack and just try to do as much damage to me. He's going to take the 2, and in return, I'm also going to play the Dao, and we are about to get Dao crazy. And this is just a good example as far as like what the Alpha Legion can do when they need to shift it up. I think it's a smart play. Alpha Legion can have a lot of healing in there. If he's able to stun my warlord for a turn or 2, it might be enough to turn the tide, and I really think that's what he's going for. That sneak attack troop is very nice, but I'm at an advantage right now. I'm at an advantage. I've got more health than he's got, so if he can stun and heal, it'll buy him a turn. Otherwise, I'm sitting up here pretty nice. And this turn is kind of the one that determines it. He drops that. He's got stun on there. He stunned my troop as well. And then he's going to hit me with a total of 10 more. And all of a sudden, it's an even game. It's very aggressive. But I've got cards in hand to finish off the deal. And to go with that last attack that he did really kind of drove home the point. I could either play the Speeders and the Thunderhawk or the Skyfire. I just went with the 2 tactics in hand, but we knew it was going to go this way. It was a fun game. It was a fast game, and if you get the cards out either with your fast troops or the Dao or the tactics that are dealing damage, you can go fast aggro if you want to go that way. You're not stuck playing mid-range. That's the wonderful thing about mid-range. It plays what it needs to play. It plays what it needs to play. Another game here that we've got that's kind of not too long. Let's do the mirror match. Let's do a good old mirror match. Hibou Khan versus Hibou Khan. And we'll kind of see my Hibou Khan versus somebody else's Hibou Khan, what cards put in there. Now, this was my first draft. I have 2 Targetized Sacrifices. I have since changed that to 1. This was in here following the change that they did, and I found that 2 was too much. I wanted to go more with the health and the healing, a little bit more so than relying on that card too much as a late game. It can come in handy, but having 2 in your hand sometimes can feel like a dead card. So it wasn't worth it to me. Now, this is one of those rare examples where I get the counterattack. The counterattack for the White Scars is nice. It's even nicer for Hibou Khan, because this deck here is an aggressive deck. It's not Kinza, it's not Targetai, who's really more one to use his ability. It's a warlord who I plan on going face when the time comes, and having that option to up my attack just by 1, whether to deal with the troop or to deal with or to deal extra damage to the warlord. That's nice. That's a good spot to have. So I'm all right with that. He's got some flanking troops out there. Deal damage there, draw some cards. He's up on health on me by just 1, but I think with using my ability, that's really going to, or counterattack rather, that's going to kind of even the board. And I used the counterattack there just because my hand size was getting quite large at that point. With 9 cards in hand, I don't want to risk being overdrawn and losing any such tools that I'm going to need, especially with low energy. I want to be able to play cards as quickly as possible. You want to play those 5 drops there on 5 if you can. If they get bounced to your hand by Ambassador Melgator, your opponent isn't doing you any harm because you can play them again. Their ability that they can deal on the next turn to deal damage in addition to healing, they're just stellar. They're just a fantastic rare for an aggressive move, for a support role. There's a lot of subtle healing within the deck, and I really like that. And now we're kind of in that mode where we've got troops in hand, we've got Jubal, we've got some tactics, we've got some fast stuff. He knows I've got the Sagyar Mayzan, so he has to deal with that guy right there. Otherwise, that's going to become a 6 attack. And now I'm forcing him to burn resources to deal with my stuff, as opposed to burning resources to, or put resources down to make me burn resources. This is where the mirror match really kind of comes into those moments where who gets what first and how do they choose to play it, right? I've got more health than him. I can switch from a super aggressive approach now to gain a little bit of health. And while he is going for this flank strategy to get rid of my troops, they're not doing any damage to my warlord, right? He drew some cards and he gained no health there whatsoever, which I'm sure was unfortunate. And then I can just begin to pelt away with whatever I want to pelt with. I'm going to throw down a troop, a nice laughing Khan there to make him consider what his next option is going to be. What resources is he going to have to invest to get rid of this one card? And he's going to go full out and burn 2 very good cards that he'd want to use late game. It has gained him nothing here, and in hand I now have lethal with the tactics that I've got. So and I didn't realize I drew. I must have created a copy there with Hakeem. I think I created a copy there with Hakeem is how I got that other one. So, and that's going to be game, and that's a mirror game here, and we've seen him in events, but that's how he plays. That's how Hibou Khan plays. He's very flexible. Again, the term is mid-range. That's what he does. He can be aggressive. He can sit back and respond, all while building up his final moves, or he can just he can control if he wants to control. He can do what he wants to do when he wants to do it. Now, there are a couple problems with mid-range decks, and there are a couple problems with Hibou Khan in general. There's going to be some big things that will throw you off. Obviously, a big element is frontline decks. Frontline decks are going to cause a problem with a lot of your fast troops. You won't be able to hit as quickly and as hard as possible, and that's either where his tactics or his ability come in handy, or that Sagyar Mayzan for the additional punch at the end. That's where that comes in handy. But also overly aggressive decks such as Angron or Kabanda are going to be hard matchups because they can come out swinging right out the gate. And while Hibou Khan can be aggressive, he really shifts into aggressive mode around 5 energy or 6 energy. Sometimes you've already taken so much damage at that point in time that you then have to become in recovery mode. I've still had a couple close games with Angron and Kabanda, won a couple, lost a couple, but those are very hard matchups just by the sheer nature of that. I think the additional healing that was increased with the Golden Star Rhino, I think that helps a lot. I think the Storm Seers, while you have to attack those warlords to get that health, it's still a trade-off and you're still gaining from it, so it's still not a bad deal. If you can manage to get White Tiger Dao, you can really close that gap and make it even trickier to navigate for both yourself and your opponent. The other thing with mid-range decks is if you are playing mid-range and your opponent bursts out ahead of you, or you just simply don't draw the cards that you need to draw. If I don't have card draws in hand, or I'm just using all my cards to throw away on everything that my opponent's putting down, I'm losing momentum. And we saw that in that mirror match. Eventually, he had to play 2, 3 cards, 4 cards just to deal with the stuff that I put down. I only played 1 card. But all his resources worth flanking went into dealing with those troops, and that took away cards that he could have been putting into damaging me. Now, I do have 1 flank troop in here for that purpose. I have a Vendali Bike Squad. Because I already have so much fast troops, and because I plan on using Hibou's ability, the tactics to deal damage, I feel the need for flanking is not as high as the need for fast troops or tactics that offer me options, whether that is dealing damage or returning a card, or dealing damage and drawing a vehicle from my deck. And then if it comes really down to it, then I've got either Stormlance, Golden Keshig, or Uhan to really help stall buy me the time that I need. If I'm just throwing out flanking is going to do nothing against a mono aggressive warlord whatsoever, especially with a low health of 2. But also it's just getting rid of my opponent's threats, and there's a lot of cards in the card pool here that exist that can do that or more, whether they are healing or whether they are doing damage, whether they are shuffling things in. And Targetized Sacrifice is still a worthwhile card, because sometimes your opponent's got 5 or 6 troops on the board. All total, you're looking at maybe 12 to 15 damage. But if you Targetized Sacrifice and only take 8, it's a better exchange. Still a gamble. Still wish that this was 1 damage instead of 2, but in the right certain situations, it's justifiable. And then you just get to make use of all the legendaries and that you don't see in some of these other decks. Some of these one-turn kill decks don't use all those cards. You don't need Skilled Rider. You don't need Skilled Rider for Hibou Khan. You only need to use him once. And the reason being is because he doesn't have sneak attack, number 1, but number 2, he really wants to get to those 6+ energy options so he can begin to use those troops. If you're attacking too much early on, come 6-7 energy, you might only have 1 or 2 turns left to wrap up the game, whereas if you hold back and use his ability, you'll have more health, and that really lets you use those troops better in certain situations. We talked about For the Khan. For the Khan might be a better option for the Outriders. It's higher cost. It's something to consider, but again, with that Sagyar Mayzan, I really don't need a lot of the cards that bolster my troops necessarily. And then I would maybe, like, if you're looking to consider, like, what are the cards to draw, if you don't have the Uhan, I think being able to have a frontline, a beefy frontline at that can kill a stealth or randomly remove stealth from a card is good. If you don't have the legendary, if you don't have Hawkeye, then what you could do is the Thunderhead Predator. This is a really strong card. Dealing 4 damage to a random enemy, which can be a warlord, is nice. On top of that, it's an 8 attack, 6 body that requires a response. So that's also actually a very good cheap card. You could go that way in place of Uhan. You could go that way in place of the Hawkeye. Or if you really need to, you could throw in 2 of them in place of the Golden Keshig. The random damage part you're going to have to deal with, but it's a solid card, and it's a common. So that is Hibou Khan, guys. That is the way I play him. I really enjoy him as a mid-range warlord. As you can see, with just playing the games, win rate is pretty high. Yes, it's in practice, but it's those are legit games. Those are good games. Those are fun games, and that's really the most important thing. You could take them into ladder, have similar success. You might have a little less success depending on the day that you're playing and who it is that you're facing and what level you're facing. But the whole point is there are 90 warlords in the game. In 2 more days, there's going to be 93 warlords in the game, and we're almost at that 100 mark. And there's no reason not to try out some new stuff and have fun with it. I certainly have, and I hope that this video has been useful for you and give you some ideas. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to the channel, please do so. Like the video, share it with others who are interested in getting into the White Scars, who have Hibou Khan or are thinking about picking him up. Very versatile warlord. Very versatile warlord. I think in terms of how he plays compared to warlords in other factions, if you enjoy playing Loken, if you enjoy playing the Ultramarines warlords, if you enjoy playing on or Dynat, or even if you enjoy playing, Lucius. Lucius seems aggressive, but really similar play style in terms of how he plays. Going all out. You want to get to that 6-7 energy to have options to do lethal. Different card pool altogether, but he plays very similar to that. So just a really good game. Really good card. Enjoy it. That's it. Thanks for watching. Keep playing Legions, and we will talk to you later. All right, bye.